How to talk to anyone. How to use small talk to enhance your social skills. Written by Craig Yeager. Narrated by Queenie Walsh. Chapter 1. The actual meaning of social skills. There are a lot of different meanings of social skills, but I think of them as the capabilities necessary to easily agree with others and to produce and maintain rewarding relationships. The exuberant, extroverted style of interacting that tends to be valued highly in American society is not necessarily the best or the only way to relate to others. A quieter style of relating can also be really healthy. Social skills are about having the ability to flexibly change our behavior to fit a particular circumstance and our personal needs and desires. 3 processes underlying social abilities. There are 3 main processes that kids and grown-ups use to navigate the social world: seeing, thinking, and doing. Number 1, seeing. Seeing in a social situation includes picking up on social hints. It means seeing the context. Is the setting casual or official? Are these other children good friends, acquaintances, or strangers? Various situations call for different types of conduct. Social seeing also means seeing other children's behavior. If a kid feels lost concerning how to act in a new circumstance, answering the question, "What is everyone else doing?" might supply some tips about what to do. Obviously, I'm not advocating lemming like following of the crowd. Good judgment is always needed. Keeping track of other people's responses can also help children change course if things aren't working out. This could be seeing. She seems bored with this game. Could prompt a kid to suggest a new game or to ask the good friend what she would like to do. Children who have a hard time with social seeing usually unknowingly irritate others. They may do things that are inappropriate for the context, like being ridiculous when everybody else is being serious. Worse, they might persist in doing frustrating or disturbing things just because they overlook the signs that others want them to stop, i.e., glaring at them, keeping away from eye contact, moving away. Number 2, thinking. Thinking in social settings includes analyzing other children's behavior to comprehend why they're doing what they're doing. Are they being lively or aggressive? Was it intentional or unintentional? It also means being able to forecast other people's very likely responses and to come up with efficient strategies for impacting peers in preferred ways. Research on social cognition tells us that children who struggle socially often misinterpret others' intents. This could be aggressive children are more likely than other kids to see a peer's behavior as originating from purposeful meanness. They are also less able to come up with positive methods for resolving social troubles. Number 3, doing. Doing in a social setting means communicating with peers in positive ways. Some kids know what they ought to do, but have difficulty actually doing it. An example would be the following. They may want to join a discussion, but they feel anxious and freeze up, so they say nothing. Other kids tend to act impulsively, blurting out inappropriate comments. Helping children learn social skills. Some kids seem to learn social skills really quickly, but others can gain from some extra coaching. Almost every kid fights with friendship problems at a little bit of time in some way, whether it's searching for a buddy in a new school, managing teasing, or having an argument with a friend. These kinds of experiences are really typical, but they can also be extremely uncomfortable. Thinking about the three processes underlying social skills, seeing, thinking, and doing, can help you comprehend where your child could be stuck and suggest ways to help your child progress. For instance, throughout a play date or a journey to the playground, you might be able to help your kid see better by making observations that draw your child's attention to appropriate hints. Or, Carlos appears annoyed at this moment. Priya and Abigail are taking turns on the slide. If your child is struggling to find out how to react to a social issue, you may be able to support your child's social thinking by supplying insights to explain the other child's behavior. You could also help your kid brainstorm possible reactions and evaluate their very likely results. Finally, you could be able to create chances for your kid to practice doing social skills by role playing predicaments, planning methods in advance for rough circumstances, or arranging appropriate activities. For example, children who find it hard to make eye contact may find it much easier to look at people between the eyebrows. This stumbles upon the exact same eye contact but could feel less threatening for kids. Rehearsing basic responses to typical questions can also help anxious children surpass deer in the headlight moment. How was your weekend? Good. I had a soccer game. How's school? Good. We're learning more about the Mayans in social studies. These exchanges don't certify as amusing banter, but they're a good way to deal with predictable questions. Kids typically make good friends by doing things together, so an interest related club, class, or team may be useful. One on one playdates often feel more workable than group activities for children who are on the shy side. Some children who struggle socially with their age mates do better with kids who are several years more youthful or older than they are. Continually experiencing social failure doesn't help children learn. Children who deal with friendship problems need assistance and support so they can get it right socially by seeing, thinking, and doing in ways that help them connect with their peers. Getting tons of practice, having positive interactions with other kids allows kids to feel really comfortable, competent, and positive in social situations. Chapter 2: Joy, Small Talk, and Big Talk. All of us talk. That is human nature. However, do we talk about big subjects or small subjects? Do we participate in huge talk, as it were, or just small talk? And what does our style say about us? Someone said, I am an excellent small talker. I can chatter away with practically anybody about anything: the weather, the local sports group, or last night's TV programs. Cocktail conversations are my forte, and I have always presumed that was an unalloyed advantage, an indicator of my glibness, if not more exceptionally, my social skills. So, that individual has to be a happy camper, right? Perhaps not. According to a research study by Matthias Mell and coworkers, 2010, those scientists asked 79 college students to wear an audio recorder for 4 days as they tackled their everyday lives. At random, during waking hours, A 30-second recording was made from whatever was being said, resulting in practically 24,000 bits, about 300 per individual. Those snippets were then coded by researchers into casual conversation, described as the banal and uninvolved exchange of insignificant info, about 18% of all noted conversations, or substantive talk, described as the involved exchange of meaningful information, about 36%. The staying conversations could not be unambiguous, coded into either category. Also known about the research participants was their happiness, examined in some ways. The results were straightforward. First and foremost, happier participants spent more time speaking with others. Unsurprising finding given the social basis of happiness. Second, the degree of social talk was adversely connected with joy. And third, the degree of substantive talk was favorably connected with joy. So, happy people are socially engaged with others, and this engagement involves matters of substance. The authors acknowledge that the causal direction of these results is not clear. Causality could run from big talk to happiness, or it could range from joy to huge talk. It could range from casual conversation to distress, or from unhappiness to small talk. But regardless, the results are fascinating, at least to me, because they are not what I would have expected. I would have anticipated that chattering away, small talking, would be a sign of more happiness, and that huge talking would mark someone's darker, or at the very least, ponderous side. On the contrary, and that is the reason that research is necessary to do. Mind you, for a conversation to earn a score of substance from these scientists, it didn't need to focus on the meaning of life or the disclosure of deep secrets. Rather, substantive discussions were included, that is, the individual with whom the scientist's individual talked actually mattered vis-a-vis the discussion. Assuming that causality runs from the subjects of our conversations to our psychological wellness, the so what of the research appears pretty clear. Talk about what matters, particularly to those that care about what you say. Chapter 3. Are you an experienced social actor or a social chameleon? We all engage in impression management, trying to put our best foot forward and fit it in social situations. Two psychologists construct resolve how people perform in social situations, and there are subtle but crucial differences. The first construct is called self monitoring, and it is the capability to read social cues and alter one's behavior so as to try to fit in to a particular social situation. Often, the high self monitor controls her or his conduct in order to impress others or to receive others' social approval. Low self monitors, on the other hand, are less concerned with self presentation and are more likely to express their true mindsets and feelings despite the social scenarios. Think of somebody who expresses their true political emotions no matter who they're communicating with, versus the high self monitor who measure the crowd, liberal versus conservative, before sharing or not sharing political opinions. The second construct is called social control and is skill in social performing. Individuals high up on social control are also able to control and manage their impressions, but they're not as highly impacted by the social circumstance. Instead, the high social control individual possesses a social self confidence and grace that allows her or him to be reliable in a variety of social circumstances. Rather than the high self monitor's propensity to blend in, the individual high in social control tends to stick out in a favorable manner. Our research has realized that individuals who have a great deal of social control and who are also expressive and outbound are more likely to be perceived as potential leaders and to lead social groups. High self monitors are also likely to be chosen as leaders because they represent the model of a group leader, because they fit in. One issue with the high self monitor is that in the desire to fit in with the group and acquire their approval, the individual might become a sort of social chameleon, changing attitudes, opinions, and feelings in an effort to fit in and to be accepted. From a management perspective, this can mean the leader is highly sensitive and responsive to the social climate, and the leader changes views depending on the crowd and could appear wishy washy. Socially, the exceptionally high self monitor fits in, but we never ever get a sense of who the social chameleon really is or what he or she has faith in and stands for. On the other hand, the person who is incredibly high on social control moves with confidence forward and works to bring others along with him or her. The drawback of too much social control, though, can be a sort of arrogance born of the supreme self esteem that the individual possesses. Social control thus needs to be balanced with a sensitivity to others and consideration of their viewpoints and emotions. So, where do you fall on these two dimensions? Here are some sample products from the self monitoring scale. Agreeing suggests high self monitoring. In different circumstances and with different people, I typically act like really different individuals. Even if I'm not enjoying myself, I usually pretend to be having fun. When I doubt how to act in a social circumstance, I look to the conduct of others for cues. Here are some sample items from the social control scale. Again, agreeing suggests high social control. I can fit in with all kinds of people, young and old, wealthy and poor. People from different backgrounds appear to feel comfortable around me. I can very easily adjust to remaining in particularly any social situation. Chapter 4: How to Make Small Talk Feel More Authentic. Most people treat social talk quite instrumentally as a way to win good friends and influence people, and that can definitely be the case. But I find that it's a lot more reliable and frankly simpler to think of chit chat as a very real, genuine way to construct the building blocks of an actual, meaningful future relationship. Here are a few concrete suggestions to make this happen. Number 1, deal with small talk as a very real chance and be presented and engaged. We've all probably gone through the motions at the time of small talk, saying hi, making a quick remark, giving a quick smile, but with our real attention directed somewhere else, perhaps to the next task we have on our plate or to something else we're concerned about. Though the subjects we discuss during trivial conversation can often be rather substantive, like a big approaching discussion, or a journey abroad, or something about our family or kids, even if we only briefly or lightly discuss them throughout the conversation itself. Remember that what's talked about during small talk actually does often help you discover what is very important in an individual's life. Be present and engaged throughout small talk, even if it lasts for only a few moments. Number two, ask questions that have the chance of triggering a pretty good conversation based on typical interests. One tip I often suggest to people is to use what's around you in the room, since, after all, that's something you will always have in common. The fact that you are together in the same physical space. Perhaps, as held true a few days ago in a space I was in, the clock was broken, and that provided an amusing way to kick off a small talk conversation. Or maybe there is something special about the view. Or maybe your associate has something unique with them, like an intriguing bag or umbrella or computer system case. Focusing on the instant present is often an excellent way to start a conversation on a positive note about something you both may have something to say about. Number three, jot some things down and carry trivial conversation into the future. Imagine, for example, you happen to have a quick casual conversation discussion with a colleague about a discussion she is making later in the day. That's something you may keep in the back of your mind for the next time you see her. Obviously, there's always a chance that the presentation didn't work out and she will not want to talk about it. But if you bring it up in a way that shows you remember and care, chances are it will help deepen the relationship. The point here is that discussions, even little micro ones, can be woven together to build a tapestry of an individual connection and relationship. The key is to be present, listen, ask good questions, and remember. Chapter 5, The Top 6 Reasons Foreigners Hate American Style Small Talk. Americans can find it hard to take part in small talk with people they don't know. But imagine if you originate from a nation where casual conversation isn't common, or where it's actually inappropriate. Here are 6 reasons foreigners dislike American style small talk. See if any of them applies to you. Number 1. Small talk feels odd and overly personal. You're quietly minding your own business in line at the bank, and somebody you do not know flashes a big toothy smile and begins to discuss the weather. And then before you know it, you've learned she had a challenging commute to work this morning, has 2 kids she needs to pick up at 3 p.m., and is recovering from a breakup with her boyfriend. To be truthful, I'm American and I find conversations like these to be exceptionally unusual. Picture what it's like for people from societies where you just don't do casual conversation with strangers. Number 2. Small talk feels shallow. On the other hand, this shouldn't be unexpected. Chit chat is supposed to be small in the sense that you don't typically cover the great issues of the day. But still, when you're not used to the ritual, it can feel shallow. Like, for example, the feared, "How's it going?" question. In some cultures, when you ask somebody how it is going, you actually mean, "How are things going?" as in, "How are you?" And I actually care about the answer. However, what about in the United States, where a person you don't even actually know well asks you that question? And while they're speeding by you without the time or disposition to even hear your answer, Can you see how someone could find that superficial? Number 3, what do you possibly talk about? The weather? Your commute to the office? The huge report due the next day? Picture you originate from that civilization where small talk with strangers isn't common. And then picture you are in the US having to begin one of these conversations. You might know in theory, for example, that the weather is a common chit chat subject, but what do you actually say about it? Do you rattle off the last 5 years of snowfall data for your longitude and latitude? Do you break out your weather.com app to preview tomorrow's rainfall? Again, without understanding the script, you could go way too deep or entirely off kilter without even understanding it. Number 4, small talk feels inefficient and like a big waste of time. Granted, for people used to the dance, trivial conversation can feel like that perfect little warm up before the main event, helping relieve you into a conversation with some casual, lighthearted banter. However, for others, particularly those unfamiliar with the protocol, it can feel frustratingly ineffective, specifically in an expert context with deadlines and pressure to get business done. Germans, for example, typically find American style small talk irrelevant and efficient, in addition to being superficial. And if you think of it, you can't truly blame them. It does feel a bit like filler, almost an unneeded appetizer before the main dish of conversation. Number 5, small talk can feel harmful. Americans may not instantly relate small talk with threat, but in many cultures, you just merely do not make casual conversation with people you don't know, period. And if you were to participate in a discussion, you'd be extremely secured about what you reveal and to whom. So if that individual sitting next to you appears suspicious of your lighthearted remarks about their backpack or the weather, you now know why. Number 6, it is hard to bid farewell. Finally, for lots of people, the goodbye is the most difficult part of all. For people from countries where chit chat is not part of the script, bidding farewell can feel actually abrupt and even rude. You do not want to hurt the other individual's feelings, but you also do not want to stay talking exclusively to them for the entire evening. As a matter of fact, I know somebody from China who stays away from making casual conversations for exactly this reason. He has not a single clue how to complete the conversation. In the end, social talk can be a key tool for stimulating a professional connection. But remember, cultural distinctions play a key role as well. And when your foreign born colleague doesn't seem to take you up on that discussion about last night's ball game or the insane April weather, don't take it personally. They most likely just dislike small talk, not you. Chapter 6, does screen time really hurt kids' social skills? In great news for parents everywhere, a new research study suggests that kids nowadays still have typical social skills regardless of smart devices and tablets. One of the essential criticisms of screen time for children is that it causes less direct socializing. It feels a lot like common sense that less time spent interacting socially would remove from opportunities to learn social skills. Moms and dads worry when they hear stories from other parents who've taken kids out to cafe and watched those kids take out their phones instead of talking with the friends right in front of them. There is definitely enough research to suggest parents have reason to be concerned about the potential negative effect of certain kinds of screen time on psychological health. However, at the very least, when it comes to the social skills themselves, it appears like parents or caretakers can relax a bit about the effect of screens. A new research study published in the American Journal of Sociology suggests that screen time has little impact overall on kids' social skills. Thus, many parents or caregivers, the lead author of the research study, was convinced that social skills had weakened in this generation. A professor of sociology at Ohio State University, Douglas Downey, first had the idea for the research study throughout an argument with his son. While eating pizza with his son Nick, Downey started clarifying to him how terrible his generation was in regards to their social skills, most likely because of how much time they spent looking at screens. Downey said in a news release on April 15th, "Nick asked me how I knew that. And when I checked, there truly was not any solid evidence." The study compared elementary school children from two generations. To investigate, Downey and his colleague Benjamin Gibbs, associate professor of sociology at Brigham Young University, used data from the Early Youth Longitudinal Study run by the National Center for Educational Data. The study looked at two accomplices of kids. The first included about 19,000 kids who began kindergarten in 1998, and the second included 13,400 students who began kindergarten in 2010. The value of these groups relates to new innovations. 1998 was 6 years before Facebook, and 2010 was the year the first iPad was introduced. The ECLS collected ratings from parents or caregivers 3 times, at the start and end of kindergarten and at the end of first grade. It also gathered evaluations from instructors 6 times between kindergarten and the end of 5th grade. In both the eyes of parents or caregivers and teachers, children had similar social capabilities in both groups. The children were rated on things like how they controlled their temper or how well they kept relationships. The research study even looked at the children's ability to work well with the ones that were different from themselves. As a matter of fact, the teachers ranked both the interpersonal abilities and the self-discipline of kids slightly higher in the group from 2010. Surely, screen time has some negative impact on social skills. We have heard for so long that screen time diminishes a kid's ability to learn social skills that it may be hard to accept the findings. Yet, the research study found out that the kids with the biggest amount of screen time still developed social skills, likewise to the kids with only a little. The only exception was found in the kids who took part in social networks and online gaming many times a day. For them, social skills were partially lower. Even Downey was amazed. He referred to an age-old question: what's wrong with children these days? It's normal for older generations to worry over how new technologies impact the young. Generally, we found extremely little evidence that the time spent on screens was hurting social skills for most kids. Downey clarified in the press release, "You have to know how to communicate by email, on Twitter and Facebook, and in person. We just looked at in-person social skills in this research study. but future studies should look at digital social skills too. Chapter 7: Chatter is a social skill, not a character flaw. Smugly looking down from the moral high ground and secure in the knowledge that we don't share their character flaw, we typically dismiss those that are obsessed with the behaviors of others as shallow. Indeed, in its rarest form, gossip is a strategy used by people to further their own track records and interests at the expense of others. Research studies that I have performed confirm that chatter can be used in terrible ways for selfish purposes. At the exact same time, how many can leave a juicy story about one of their associates and keep it to themselves? Undoubtedly, each of us has had direct experience with the difficulty of keeping amazing news about somebody else a secret. When disparaging chatter, we overlook the fact that it's a vital part of what makes the social world tick. The nasty side of gossip overshadows the more benign ways in which it works. In fact, chatter can actually be thought about not as a character flaw, but as a highly progressed social skill. The people who can't do it well often have difficulty maintaining relationships and can find themselves on the outside looking in. As social creatures, we're hardwired to chatter. Like it or not, we're the descendants of busybodies. Evolutionary psychologists believe that our fixation with the lives of others is a byproduct of an old brain. According to scientists, simply because our ancient forefathers lived in relatively small groups, they knew one another thoroughly. In order to ward off opponents and endure in their severe natural environment, our ancestors needed to cooperate with in group members. But they also acknowledged that these exact same in group members were their primary rivals for mates and restricted resources. Living under such conditions, our ancestors dealt with some adaptive social problems. Who's reputable and trustworthy? Who's a cheater? Who would make the best mate? How can friendships, alliances, and family obligations be stabilized? In this sort of environment, an intense interest in the personal dealings of others would have definitely been handy and highly favored by natural selection. Most people who were the best at harnessing their social intelligence to analyze, anticipate, and influence the conduct of others became more stressful than the ones that were not. The genes of those people were passed along from one generation to the next. Staying away from chatter, a one-way ticket to social seclusion. Today, good gossipers are prominent and well-known members of their social groups. Sharing secrets is one way people bond, and sharing chatter with another individual signifies deep trust. You're signifying that you believe that the person will not use the sensitive info against you. Therefore, someone skilled at gossip will have a great rapport with a big network of people. In the meantime, they'll be discreetly well informed about what's going on throughout the group. On the other hand, a person who isn't part of, say, the office chatter network is an outsider, a person neither trusted nor accepted by the group. Presenting yourself as a self-righteous soul who refuses to take part in gossip will ultimately wind up being nothing more than a ticket to social seclusion. In the office, research studies have revealed that safe gossiping with one's associates can build group cohesiveness and increase morale. Chatter also helps to socialize newcomers into groups by dealing with ambiguity about group standards and values. Simply put, listening to the judgments that people make about the behaviors of others helps the rookie figure out what's acceptable and what isn't. Fear of whispers keeps us in check. On the other side, the consciousness that others are likely talking about us can keep us in line. Among a group of friends or coworkers, the risk of being the target of chatter can actually be a positive force. It can discourage free riders and cheaters who could be tempted, slack off, or benefit from others. Biologist Robert Trivers has discussed the evolutionary value of detecting gross cheaters, those who fail to reciprocate altruistic acts, and subtle cheaters, those who reciprocate but give much less than they get. Chatter can actually embarrassment these free riders, reining them in. Studies of California cattle ranchers, Maine lobster fishers, and college rowing teams verified that chatter is used in a variety of settings to hold individuals liable. In each of these groups, individuals who broke expectations about sharing resources or meeting duties became targets of gossip and ostracism. This, in turn, pushed them to become better members of the group. For instance, lobstermen who didn't respect well established group norms about when and how lobsters could be gathered were quickly exposed by their colleagues. Their fellow lobstermen temporarily avoided them and, for a while, refused to work with them. Celebrity chatter could have a function after all. Belgian psychologist Charlotte de Backer makes a distinction between method learning chatter and reputation chatter. When chatter is all about a certain individual, we're usually interested in it only if we know that person. Yet, some gossip is fascinating no matter whom it has to do with. That sort of gossip can include stories about life or death, situations, or impressive tasks. We pay more attention to them because we may be able to learn strategies that we can apply to our own lives. Undoubtedly, DeBacker discovered that our interest in celebs could feed off of this thirst for learning life strategies. For better or for even worse, we look to celebs in the exact same way that our forefathers wanted to good example within their people for guidance. At its core, our fixation on celebrities is reflective of an innate interest in the lives of others. From an evolutionary standpoint, star is a recent phenomenon due mostly to the explosions of mass media in the 20th century. Our forefathers, on the other hand, found social importance in the intimate details of everyone's private life, since everybody in their little social world mattered. But anthropologist Jerome Barco has mentioned that evolution did not prepare us to distinguish among those members of our community who have a real effect on us, and the ones that exist in the images, films, and tunes that bathe our everyday lives. From TMZ to USA Weekly, the media fuels gossip mills that imitate those of our workplaces and friend groups. In a way, our brains are tricked into feeling an intense familiarity with these famous people, which scams us into wanting to know a lot more about them. After all, anybody whom we see that often and know that much about should be socially crucial to us. Simply because of the familiarity we feel with celebrities, they can serve an essential social function. They could be the only friends we have in common with the next door neighbors and coworkers. They are shared cultural touchstones that facilitate the types of informal interactions that help people become comfortable in new environments. Staying up to date with the lives of actors, political leaders, and sports players can make an individual more socially proficient during interactions with strangers and even offer inroads into new relationships. The bottom line is that we really need to reconsider the role of gossip in daily life. There is no need to avoid it or to be embarrassed of it. Successful gossiping entails being a good team player and sharing essential info with others in ways in which will not be perceived as self serving. It's really just about understanding when it's appropriate to talk and when it is most likely best to keep your mouth shut. Chapter 8: The Top 3 Steps to Becoming a Small Talk Pro. How good are you at making small talk? When you're in the middle of a real chance encounter with a person, does every possible thing to say go flying out of your head? Or do you believe that small talk is silly and that each encounter you have with another person needs to involve large talk? According to a current column by New York Times contributor Maeve Higgins, the trivial conversation problem appears to be culturally particular to Americans. She herself is Irish, and she keeps that the pitter patter of irrelevant observations comes far easier to those from her native land than it does to Americans. If you are an American, these observations might strike you as completely contrary to your own experiences. You have had plenty of chit chat in your life, from switching stores while waiting in line at the pharmacy to sitting next to a fellow traveler on a bus, train, or aircraft. Still, to Higgins, Americans are even more likely than people of other cultures to use interactions with strangers to share deeply personal specifics of their lives. Reflect on the most recent trip you took where you were a solo traveler. What did you and your seatmate chat about, if anything? Did you or the other person ask a question about each other's professions, hometown, or members of the family? How many steps did it take for you to go from a shared glance or smile to discoveries about problems with children, an employer, or coworkers? Did it appear pointless for you to talk about the comforts or discomforts of travel, the weather, or something going on in the seats across from yours? Higgins believes that Americans feel a strong need to dig down deep with complete strangers and that anything less doesn't seem worth discussing. According to her viewpoint, however, it is the talk that, when done properly, is actually an extremely efficient way of getting familiarized with people. She goes on to take note of the fact that you can answer such questions as whether they are kind, hurting, silly, or bad. Some mix of all of those. The answer is there, believe it or not. If you ask them about the party food, or tell them about your blouse, or bring up the oddly cloudless sky outside and simply take it from there. This interesting thesis certainly wasn't put to scientific tests in this really insightful essay, but there's research to back the area that small talk helps to grease crucial social wheels and help us find out about the people with whom we share even the most casual of experiences. According to Cardiff University, Wales, language and interaction scholar Justine Kuplin, 2003, small talk has traditionally been taken from both lay and scholastic perspectives as a formulaic and shallow mode of talk. In a series of documents released in this problem of the journal, Kuplin and the study authors showed just how social casual conversations can be. Earlier research, as Kuplin notes, points to the many functions of small talk, but one of its chief virtues is that it improves social cohesiveness. When a client and a server, for instance, engage in small talk, they keep the relationship on a friendly and even keel. Even people who know one another well and exchange pleasantries over the phone that don't have deep social meaning offer a psychological connection. Regrettably, because full talk seems to have so much more of an impact on social relationships, it's given preference as a way of communication to its relatively less considerable counterpart. Though, when you call a person just to stay connected, you allow the relationship to deepen in the sense of giving everyone insight into the life of the other. You discover what your sister, mom, uncle, or friend from home are doing as they tackle their day. A broken window, argument with the boss, or frustration over a nosy neighbor become grits for the relationship mill in their own unique, if not mundane, way. In the words of Kuplin, you need to build co-presence by making contact across distances, by telephoning friends or family members just to keep in touch. The primary step, then, to becoming better at social talk is to recognize its value to your relationships. Don't feel that you're losing out on chances to get to know people better by digging down as deep as soon as you can in a discussion. For people you already know, in some cases, it's better to keep it light, especially if your objective is to produce that feeling of being together when you're not physically near. Second, recognize that if you think you're not a great small talker, it's possible to improve your skills. Kuplin says that social talk is a skill that you can learn. When you're in the presence of a really good small talker, you know that you feel more at ease, in part simply because there are no awkward silences. In the worst case circumstance, you have been at a social function like a community party, sitting with people you don't actually know all that well, just staring down at your food. When a great small talker approaches you, although the conversation might be about nothing aside from crabgrass or the need for the sidewalk to be fixed, you feel relieved that you do not need to sit in stony silence. Be sure to use this experience as an opportunity to observe what this happily chatty person is doing and try it out by yourself. You have actually recognized that trivial conversation is important. You've been exposed to a good small talker you can replicate, and now you're prepared for that third step. Many people who are good at mixing or just shooting the breeze are high in so-called approach, inspiration when it comes to relationships. They look for rather than avoid human contact. While you're at that area function, venture up to someone you do not know that well and say hello. See what happens if you say something about how hot it is or how nice the decors are. Offer a compliment on the person's t-shirt or shoes. Keep it breezy and see what develops. Don't feel that the conversation is meaningless unless you embark into an extensive discussion on the individual's family, views on religious belief, or early life experiences. Kuplan says that an important feature of communication isn't the content of what is said, but the way in which it is spoken. In small talk, relational problems are vital. The last but least clear key to being proficient at small talk is being good at listening. Kuplan notes that listening offers a cue to the other individual that you actually do care about the relationship, the pure satisfaction of communion. If you don't listen, there's no other way you can bounce off of what the other individual is saying and make remarks that are proper to the level of your partner's discourse, small or otherwise. If you listen thoroughly, you can notice whether there are any shifts to a much deeper level. You can also be better able to laugh at a funny remark or express concern about a scenario that is troubling the other individual. To sum up, trivial conversation is anything but. Take the light road to your next discussion, and the results might supply you with an unexpected degree of satisfaction. This has been How to Talk to Anyone, How to Use Small Talk to Enhance Your Social Skills, written by Craig Yeager, narrated by Queenie Walsh. How to Talk to Anyone, Social Anxiety, Shyness, and Body Language Explained, written by Craig Yeager, narrated by Queenie Walsh. Chapter 1, Small Talk in Therapy. Jane bounces into her session. How are you? How's your week going? I guess that's your question, huh? She smiles and stirs her coffee. Can you believe this weather? I mean, wow. It sure is hot. She settles into her chair. Did you see the Laker game Sunday? I do not know what is wrong with them. If they do not keep playing D, the Celts are gonna sweep the series like Boston needs another champion. Is that a new t-shirt? Jane is making small talk. She's chit-chatting, chewing the fat, shooting the breeze, and/or bull. Astute insight into the NBA Finals aside, Jane appears all set to go over every little thing except herself. In the vein of client empowerment, I have got 3 things to say about small talk. Number 1, clients are permitted to discuss anything they want. Number 2, clients should never feel obligated to make small talk. Number 3, if it becomes a big part of treatment, there could be an issue. You're welcome to shoot the breeze with your therapist. It's your penny and your time. You can discuss anything you choose: weather, sports, style, politics, television shows, trivia. All sections of the paper are fair game. Some therapists could ask why you have chosen today's topic, or suggest other items to talk about, but you do not need to bite. Small talk isn't forbidden. You can guide the boat in any direction you'd like. Having said that, talk in therapy can be an enormous waste of your money and time. Let's say you banter for the first 10 minutes of each session. You pay $100 per session, and you're in treatment a year. Your table talk will cost you around $1,000 for the year. In our inflated economy, that's like 12 tanks of gas or 2 tickets to a Laker game. It's also eating up the same as 10 sessions of your precious time that could be spent addressing your problems. Some clients believe they really need to make small talk. It's tempting to apply the exact same social customs from other relationships to therapy. When you get in a store or meet someone new, it is appropriate to break the ice with safe, small talk. But treatment works in a different way. No therapist would be upset or consider it impolite if you dismissed the pleasantries and solved down to business. So, why do some feel it's needed to kick the session off with small talk? Perhaps they feel the need to make casual conversation for the therapist's sake. They may feel sorry for this separated expert, alone in their office all the time without anyone to talk with at the water cooler. Even if this is actually true, it is not your job to take care of the therapist's emotions. Therapists need to find time to meet their social and support needs through friends, family, and associates outside their work. We need interacting socially as much as the next individual, but not at your expense. Some clients feel their own interacting socially needs aren't met outside treatment, so their session becomes their own water cooler. It would be worthwhile to resolve this in therapy. The absence of a social or support network could be an essential problem to take on. More frequently, chit chat is associated with the discomfort of beginning the session. As I wrote last week, it can be difficult to downshift into treatment mode when you're entering from the busyness of life. Small talk provides a shift. We're together, we are speaking with each other, the content is light and non-threatening. The talk can help you unwind, reconnect with the therapist, and prepare you to dive into much deeper issues. Each are important, but there may be a more effective way to accomplish these exact same goals. It can also be a way to stall. It's obvious that some work in therapy hurts and tiresome. One part of you knows you actually really need to dive into hard material, while another wants to consume time with chit chat to stay away from the sting. The desire to avoid pain is humanity and absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. However, in some cases, you need to endure pain to experience growth and relief. I motivate you to roll up your sleeves and take advantage of your therapy session. Save the banter for other acquaintances and get down to business in your treatment. However, like I said, it is your choice, your time, your money. If you feel stuck in this pattern of talk, here are some pointers. Show up early to gather your thoughts. Relax and think about what you wish to deal with in the session. This may enable you to downshift before getting in the session. As you unwind in the waiting room, ask yourself, what did I notice about myself today? Your answer could be the opening line for your session. If you find yourself in a gab fest, ask yourself if there's something you're avoiding. Don't be amazed if your therapist beats you to it. Chapter 2: The Blessings of Shyness. Have you ever been told that you're shy? Maturing? Did you hear admonitions like, don't be bashful? You're not alone. In our extroverted society, being assertive, if not aggressive, is valued. Being introverted, reflective, or shy tends to be denigrated. Is shyness a bad thing or something to value about ourselves? Shyness or social anxiety. Terms like social phobia and social anxiety disorder refer to circumstances in which an individual experiences considerable fear and distress in social circumstances. Physical symptoms might include excessive blushing, sweating, or trembling. There may be an avoidance of situations that set off emotional distress or humiliation. Although there could sometimes be an overlap, being shy doesn't equate with social anxiety. Shyness is a quality that is just part of being human. Judging ourselves for being shy adds a layer of shame on a very tender and even desirable aspect of ourselves. Shyness and vulnerability. Most of us feel shy at times. Some of us are just more skilled at covering it up with defenses. Perhaps the smooth talking, lovely writers at parties are hiding a deeper vulnerability. They want to look good so that they will be liked, and it may be difficult for us to feel a connection with people who hide the shy, tender part of themselves. Being shy indicates that we are sensitively attuned to our environment. As our antenna scans for security, we shy away from the ones that appear critical or judgmental. There could be an intelligence that informs such shyness, guiding us clear of unsafe people and circumstances. When a person offers a compliment or love, or when you see somebody you're attracted to, do you feel a little shy? Instead of seeing that shyness as a weak point, can you embrace it? From the perspective of attachment theory, shyness could be viewed as a part of our yearning for connection and acceptance. Being gentle with our vulnerability, we may honor shyness as an entrance to a sweet moment of connection, as expressed in my book, The Authentic Heart. If you experience shyness, consider it a true blessing. Shyness is an entryway into a tender fold within your authentic heart. If you can allow yourself to experience shyness when it arises, if you can gently turn your attention to the place in your body that feels the shyness, then it becomes a good friend, not a hazard. Embraced shyness changes into sweet taste. As your tolerance for shyness grows, there are greater possibilities for developments into the exhilarating enjoyment of connecting. The shadow side of shyness. The shadow side of shyness is that we might distance ourselves from people before providing a real chance. If we were typically shamed or turned down, we might see the world through the distorted lens of old hurts and presume people are unsafe without checking them out. At the first hint of being slammed, we may catch the knee-jerk response of diverting our eyes or shutting down. We may judge others as being risky before connecting with them. To progress, maybe we should give people an actual chance. This would require that we stay present with our shyness without responding automatically. Developing a stronger sense of self, we recognize that it is okay to be shy and sensitive. If others are extreme or shaming, this says more about them than about us. Not enabling others to specify us, we keep holding onto our self-regard and self-respect. We protect ourselves by meeting what comes our way with a more tough self. Social anxiety might keep us holding onto the comfort of staying home, which can keep us separated. This condition might enhance with psychotherapy. Shyness, on the other hand, is something we can value about ourselves, and we walk into the world with a quiet dignity. Honoring our shyness as a sweet and tender part of ourselves, we can connect more quickly and less self-consciously with people who really appreciate us. Chapter 3: The Top 5 Ways to Make Small Talk worth the trouble? Do you dislike making small talk? Do you dread parties where you have to spend hours listening to mindless gossip and irritating bragging about other individuals' children? Do you hate going to your spouse or partner's business functions? Or perhaps you go because you're a pretty good sport, but fear each minute of it. Are you worried about all of the weddings you have to attend this year, where you'll need to sit around making small talk with associates you have no desire to learn more about better? Do you avoid happy hour with your colleagues because you do not want to loaf making idle conversation while trying not to get intoxicated? But then do you stress that not going might have effect how your supervisor sees you, or that if you can make yourself go, you will get extra points in the gets along well with colleagues column on your next assessment? If you answered yes to any of the above, you are not alone. Maybe you're shy or introverted, or just tired or irritated by apparently unlimited chatter. You might be surprised to learn that making trivial conversation is not only a crucial social skill, but it can make those happy hours less painful, earn you additional points, and give you critical information about some of the best ways to work with some of your associates and perhaps even your boss. It will also make family events, wedding events, and other social occasions a lot more interesting and open doors to new relationships, new opportunities, or even a new relationship. In my early years as a psychotherapist, I learned that asking about the small, supposedly unimportant specifics about a client's life could provide crucial info and open parts of exploration that might have otherwise taken years to get to. Just recently, a coworker told me about a young athlete who was referred to her simply because he participated in harmful behaviors. She didn't confront him about the activities straight, but just asked him to tell her as much as she could about his daily exercise regimens. As often happens, one detail resulted in another, and eventually he was sharing his own issues about his activities. A few simple strategies can make these experiences practically pain-free for even the most casual conversation averse amongst us. Number 1, pay more attention to the little things. Psychoanalyst Harry Stack Sullivan actually believed that the real nature of a customer's problems could be found in the small specifics of that person's experience. You do not want to try to do treatment or to dig out deep, dark secrets at a very happy hour or a wedding event, or any social function for that matter. But asking for more information about an obvious, unimportant topic is a way of making conversation. Ask for more, not less. You could be amazed about what you learn more about your associates, good friends, family members, and even perfect complete strangers. At a party recently, a guy began to tell me about all of the different coffees he had been attempting. As a non-coffee drinker, I was not specifically interested, but he was clearly engaged, so rather than walk off or try to find somebody else to speak to, I listened to his description of all of the different sorts of coffees there are in the world. Then I asked him what he drank at home and why. One small, apparently insignificant thing caused another, till he shared another part of his interest in coffee. Some years earlier, he became included with an organization that was attempting to help poor farmers in South America develop environmentally sound farming methods that would also bring in greater income. In order to cut down the region's attraction to the environmentally damaging beef industry or illegal drug cartels. Now, this interested me significantly. From what looked like it was going to be a boring and self centered monologue, we got into a fascinating discussion that was soon signed up with by some other individuals. Number 2, consider small talk as a first step in a process. Asking what someone does for a living or where they grew up is not just an opening gambit. It's a way of saying, I'm interested in who you are. Listening and talking about small specifics and including your own 2 cents can take you further than you might think. My husband and I just met one another just because I asked him where he was from. It ended up that we were both transplanted Southerners living in New York City and reverse commuting to work in these suburban areas. We had grown up in neighboring towns, although our youth experiences had been extremely different. However, in that first discussion, as we shared the little specifics of our distinctions, we also learned that we had many unexpected things in common. Number 3, talking about apparently unimportant aspects of daily life can lead to deeper discussions because it makes everyone feel comfortable. When you share little specifics about yourself, you feel that they are being familiar with who you truly are. On the other hand, when you listen to the little points of information they share with you, you communicate that you are interested in who they are, and they will feel more comfortable with you. All of this can result in a sense of connection and intimacy. Number 4, small talk can also protect you. As you listen to the little pieces of information that an individual shares with you, you get an actual chance to make an evaluation about whether or not you feel comfortable with them. Do you like the way he discusses other people? Does she seem too critical, mad, dissatisfied for your taste? Tiny details communicate big pieces of info. Does this person say things that distress you? Pay close attention to your physical responses as well. Do they stand too near to you? Too far? Do they touch you more than you like? How a person communicates physically is very important and can be easier to evaluate when you're making casual conversation than when you are into a deeply serious discussion. Number 5, still tired? Try to honestly examine what's going on. It may be that you're restless about what sort of impression you are making on this other person. A client who was having trouble meeting men once told me that whenever she met a man she liked, she started thinking of jelly donuts, which cleaned every other consideration of her mind. We eventually found that she was so concerned about being turned down that she just left the room, at the very least in her mind. After she began attempting to concentrate on the little details of what a man was saying, she stopped thinking about donuts, and previously too long, she was dating. But if the problem is that you just do not care what brand name of diapers a young mom has tried, or how clever a father thinks his young kid is, or if you truly do not want to really know more about what color paint someone has chosen for their bedroom, you really don't need to keep listening. You have each right to move on to somebody or something else. Just keep another thing in mind. Move on as tactfully as you possibly can. You never know when the individual you are moving away from may be important to you. They could be an associate's buddy or your next date's cousin. Leave a really good impression when you can, and then remind yourself that casual conversation can be an invaluable way to learn about people, the world, and even yourself. Chapter 4: How to be less uncomfortable at ending small talk. Ending a small talk conversation can be challenging business. You have other things to do. Maybe you really need to go back at your desk or have another call to make. Or perhaps you are at a celebration and want to have an actual chance to consult with somebody else. You certainly don't want to leave a conversation with hurt feelings, but you also don't want to unnecessarily prolong it. So, how can you increase the chances that the work you have done to build a relationship will not go down the tubes with an uncomfortable ending? Number 1, offer a rationale for ending the discussion. Rationales serve two purposes. They provide a clarification for why you are signifying an end to the conversation, which gets you off the hook, and they suggest that you've delighted in the conversation, which increases the chances of a future interaction. Here are some examples. I need to go in some minutes, but before I go, I'd really love to hear a bit more about whatever you were talking about. I have to go, but I truly like your advice about whatever you were going over. I'll keep you in the loop about how it goes. I am enjoying this conversation, but I notice that it's 9:30 and I have to be home at 10. If it is okay with you, I am going to go, but let's talk again. Number 2, leverage your immediate surroundings. Use what's in your immediate environments to help build your reasoning. For example, if there's a beverage table close by, ask your coworker if they want to get a drink. Understanding full well that you may either get broken up in the crowd or encounter other people along the way, hence ending the discussion naturally. Number 3, make an introduction. Another organic way to smooth an exit is to introduce your conversational partner to someone else as a way to end a discussion and to help 2 additional people make a connection. Number 4, foreshadow the ending. Whenever we provide bad news, it's good to let somebody know it is coming. And though ending small talk isn't a major source of bad news, it can still dissatisfy. So, cushion the blow by previewing your departure ahead of time. I promised my friend that I introduce him to a person, but before I do, I'd really love to hear a little bit more about. Number 5, remember, you might not be the only one wanting to get out of the discussion. Finally, remember that if you're itching to end the conversation, you may not be alone. Most people socializing at a public event know the offer. You talk for a while, and after that, move on. The trick is doing it in an elegant manner that maintains the relationship you have built. So, do not worry about hurting the other individual's emotions by ending the conversation. They could be thinking the precise same thing. Chapter 5: Go beyond small talk. If you'd rather not go over the weather, skip it. A research study asserts that happy people have more substantive discussions than the ones who engage solely in small talk. The data don't reveal whether profound discussion triggers joy or vice versa, but a combination of both is likely. Trivial conversation is an advantageous social ability, even a way to enter into deeper discussion. Study co-author Matthias Mayle of the University of Arizona acknowledges, but intimacy is needed to build and maintain real bonds. Kirsten Volkovic. Skip the chit-chat. Mayle offers 4 ways to encourage more satisfying discussions. Dare to divulge. Substantive discussions don't really need to be driven by feeling. They can be about politics, innovation, even what you watched on television, but they should include some personal disclosure. Next time you're having a discussion, try inserting something exposing about yourself. You could be surprised how the other person opens. Be a full individual. Give your full attention when you're speaking with a person, instead of going through that laundry list of to-dos in your head, and you will undoubtedly have a more involved face-to-face way to do it. Find commonalities. Mel says people try to find commonality as a way into having more profound discussions. If you can recognize that commonalities, you are on your way to having more significant exchanges. You're from Los Angeles? Me too. I also work in financing. Can you believe California is more in debt than Greece? Embrace your environment. Find a location where you feel safe and confident. For some people, that could be a corner of a crowded coffee house. For others, a secluded part of a park. Whether a conversation is one-on-one or in a group, it is very important to go somewhere everybody feels comfortable. When people feel relaxed, guards decrease. The conversations you will have will astonish you. Chapter 6. Social Anxiety Disorder. Social anxiety disorder, previously referred to as social phobia, is an anxiety disorder characterized by frustrating anxiety and extreme self-consciousness in everyday social circumstances. Individuals with social anxiety disorder have a persistent, intense, and persistent fear of being watched and judged by others, and of being embarrassed or humiliated by their own actions. Their fear might be so extreme that it interferes with work, school, or other activities. While lots of people with social anxiety disorder recognize that their fear of being around people might be excessive or unreasonable, they're unable to conquer it. They typically worry for days or weeks in advance of a dreaded circumstance. Aside from that, they usually experience low self-confidence and depression. Social anxiety disorder can be limited to only one type of situation, like a fear of public speaking, or an individual can experience signs whenever they are around other individuals. If left neglected, social phobia can have serious consequences. An example could be this. It might keep people from going to work or school or prevent them from making friends. Physical signs which often accompany the intense stress of social anxiety disorder include blushing, sweating, trembling, nausea, and trouble speaking. Because these noticeable signs heighten the fear of displeasure, they themselves can become an additional focus of fear, creating a vicious cycle. As individuals with social anxiety disorder worry about experiencing these symptoms, the greater their chances are of developing them. Social anxiety disorder typically runs in families and might be joined by depression or other anxiety conditions, like panic attack or obsessive compulsive disorder. Many people with social anxiety disorder self-medicate with alcohol or other drugs, which can cause dependency. About 7% of the US population is approximated to have social anxiety disorder within a given 12-month period. Social anxiety disorder takes place about twice as usual in women as in men, although a higher proportion of men seek help for their condition. The disorder generally begins in childhood or early adolescence and seldom develops after age 25. Symptoms. A diagnosis of social anxiety disorder is made only if this avoidance, fear, or restless anticipation of a social or performance situation interferes with everyday regimen, occupational performance, and social life, or if there is marked distress as a consequence of the anxiety. The DSM-5 offers the following criteria for identifying social anxiety disorder. The individual fears one or more social or performance circumstances in which she or he is exposed to possible examination by others. Examples include meeting unknown people, being observed, eating or drinking, or given a speech or performance. The individual fears acting in a manner that causes humiliation or being negatively evaluated. Exposure to social circumstances usually causes intense anxiety. The feared circumstance is avoided or endured with anxiety and distress. The fear or anxiety is out of percentage to the real risk presented by the social circumstance. The fear or anxiety is persistent and usually lasts for 6 months or longer. The avoidance, restless anticipation, or distress interferes substantially with the individual's social, academic, or occupational functioning. The physical signs of social anxiety disorder include the following: blushing, sweating, shivering, experiencing a fast heart rate, or feeling the mind going blank, nausea or upset stomach, displaying a rigid body posture, poor eye contact, or speaking too quietly. Furthermore, the diagnosis can describe if the anxiety or fear is present only when the individual is speaking or performing in public. Chapter 7: The Specifics of a Social Life. An individual's social life includes the various bonds they form with others, like family, good friends, members of their community, and strangers. It can be gauged by the duration and quality of the social interactions they have on a routine basis, both face-to-face and online. How essential is your social life? Human beings are social animals, and the tenor of a person's social life is one of the most important impacts on their psychological and physical health. Without positive, long-lasting relationships, both body and minds can break down. Individuals start life reliant for survival on the quality of their relationships with their primary caregiver, typically their mom. Mankind's survival as a species likewise hinges on the capability for social living. Most of human history was spent in little groups in which each individual depended on others for survival. Evidence suggests that this is the condition to which human beings are best adapted. Innovation has changed the ways people engage with others in their lives, but it has not impacted the basic need to form supportive bonds with others. What is the significance of social interaction? Humans are a social species driven by a desire for community and belonging. Social interactions feed that need. They are also useful from an evolutionary standpoint. Social interactions help people build communication skills and work together to achieve a common goal, as revealed by this research on friendly foxes. What are different types of social interaction? Social interaction takes place between groups of two, dyads, or more people. They may be more transactional, with one party attempting to get the other to behave a particular way, or they may be more cooperative and designated to provide shared enjoyment. Research studies suggest that the quantity of social interaction matters. Spending more time around others can increase an individual's joy and satisfaction with life. Is it okay to be a loner? Individuals tend to withdraw from social life for a range of reasons. They might be shy, prone to avoidance, naturally unsocial, turned down by their peers, or they may simply enjoy spending time alone. While lots of people end up being loners out of fear and anxiety, not all motivations are hazardous. Many people, like hermits, can get great satisfaction out of leading a solitary life. Is it unhealthy to have no good friends? In life, it is very important to be comfortable enough at communicating with people to get your fundamental needs met. But how deep do those relationships really need to grow? While you may long for closer relationships, they simply aren't necessary to your survival or perhaps your happiness. What does matter is how comfortable and content you are with being alone. How many good friends does the average individual have? There is no right number of good friends that somebody should have. What matters is the individual's perception of the quality of their friendships and how much fulfillment they get at the same time. How can I enhance my social life? Comprehending how to establish and maintain supportive connections in any medium is a vital part of life. Most people who live alone specifically benefit from cultivating a strong network of social connections. Individuals have the freedom today to build their specific social accomplice both online and offline. Their social circles may include family, good friends, professional coaches, and other important people in their lives. Online social ties can be a powerful source of social support and happiness, particularly for people who are isolated for geographic or other reasons. There is, though, no substitute for face-to-face interaction, and the ones who spend time amongst family and friends report higher levels of well-being than people with fewer ties in reality. How can I be a social person? Making friends may look like a mysterious process, but it's actually rooted in some standard social truths. For example, it's easiest to develop friendships with people who are in close proximity. share comparable interests, and support your social identity. Keeping a friendship needs you to be supportive, disclose personal info, interact routinely, and be more positive than negative on balance. Why it is harder to make friends when you're older. A lot of people find it hard to make new good friends as grown-ups. As they age, most of their time and energy get consumed by profession and family needs. They tend to interact socially out of benefit with colleagues, managers, the parents of their children's friends, and so forth. But these relationships usually do not deepen into anything more long lasting. How do I make friends as a grown up? Unlike some childhood experiences, adult friendships don't just magically happen as a result of luck. The secret to making good friends as a grown up is that you have to put yourself out there, show up at events, even when you don't want to, and actively engage with others who may share your interests. Existing and having a favorable attitude can go a long way to opening up the possibility for a much deeper friendship. Chapter 8: Social Comparison Theory. People continuously assess themselves and others in domains like attractiveness, wealth, intelligence, and success. According to some research studies, as much as 10% of our thoughts include comparisons of some kind. Social contrast concept is the idea that people decide on their own social and personal worth based upon how they compare to others. The theory was developed in 1954 by psychologist Leon Festinger. Later research has revealed that people who regularly compare themselves to others might find motivation to improve, but could also experience emotions of deep discontentment, guilt, or remorse, and take part in devastating behaviors like lying or disordered eating. The benefits of contrast. When individuals compare themselves to others as a way of measuring their personal development or to encourage themselves to enhance and, in the process, develop a more positive self-image, contrast can be advantageous. It takes discipline, though, to avoid the pitfalls of negative contrast. In big part, how we react to comparisons depends upon who we compare ourselves to. When we just want to feel better about ourselves, we tend to take part in contrast to people worse off than we are, although this can end up being an unhealthy practice. When we want to enhance, however, we could compare ourselves to people about comparable to us, but higher accomplishing in one trait or another. How can contrast help you? Social contrast can be highly useful when people use social networks to push themselves. In a research study, friendly competition was highly efficient in pushing people to work out more, as peers pushed each other to keep up and do more. In such a social cog impact, everyone's activity produces more activity, to name a few. Social networks in which people simply offered one another positive encouragement were far less helpful. Is it better to compare yourself to those doing better or even worse than you are? People generally take part in either upward or downward contrasts. In upward contrasts, we compare ourselves with those we believe are better than us in some way. In down comparisons, we do the opposite. Research, unsurprisingly, finds that down contrasts make us feel better about ourselves, but that there are dangers to each method. insecurity and jealousy, or overconfidence and conceit. Can covet ever be a favorable feeling? Envy is generally an unpleasant feeling that can cause brooding, resentment, or even violence. Some psychologists, however, have suggested that people can experience benign envy in which they use jealous emotions as motivation to enhance themselves. Benign envy could lead someone, for instance, to try to replicate the best qualities of a person who has what they want. The dangers of comparison. Theodore Roosevelt called comparison the thief of delight, and he may have been right. Social comparisons can motivate people to enhance, but it can also promote judgmental, prejudiced, and excessively competitive or superior mindsets. The majority of people have the social skills and impulse control to keep their requirements for social contrast to themselves, and not to act on any envy or bitterness spurred by comparison making, though their true feelings could manifest in other ways. Why can comparisons make people feel bad? Contrasts are likelier to make us feel bad when we make the mistake of only comparing ourselves to apotheosis of certain traits. For instance, many people believe they have a less active social life than others, but when making such contrasts, people tend to compare themselves only to the most social people they know. Comprehending this bias can help us make more realistic and motivating comparisons. Is social media harmful to self-esteem? Continuously checking social media feeds full of pictures from parties, concerts, or other aspirational events can reduce self-esteem and add to depression. However, some studies have found out that such risks primarily influence those high in the quality of neuroticism, and others suggest that social media use can reinforce self-esteem. For instance, when people review their own images of great times with friends. How can I stop comparing myself to others? To be less vulnerable to uncomfortable contrasts, see the people or events that trigger the behavior. Commit to being deeply grateful for what is good in your own life, and remember that the human tendency to want what others have is such a time waster, unless what you see and yearn for in another is something of deep worth, such as their generosity or generosity. Comparison and bias. Many people fall into the trap of positional predisposition, comparing up more frequently than down relative to their own standing. A fascination with star civilization and the prevalence of carefully manicured social media feeds only worsens the impact by revealing people to an unlimited stream of others' relatively flawless images, homes, jobs, abilities, and families. What's the better than average impact? It's been widely shown that people tend to believe that they are above average when it comes to preferable characteristics such as intelligence. Still, the belief could not be so steady. For example, people are typically fast to report that they're smarter than typical, but rather more simple than asked to place themselves in a specific percentile or to rate themselves on specific abilities. Are guys or women more likely to think they're better than average? 2/3 of Americans believe their intelligence is above average, But guys are much more very likely to inflate themselves than women. In studies, more than 70% of men mention that they are smarter than average, compared to about 60% of women, and they're much more likely to strongly concur that they are smarter than average. Why do narcissists really need to outshine everyone else? Grandiosity is a core quality of many people high in narcissism, but seeing themselves as remarkable also needs seeing everybody else as below them. Research finds that while many people are driven by a real need for social addition and approval, those high in narcissism are motivated by a real need for status, to stand above a group instead of being welcomed into it. This has been How to Talk to Anyone, Social Anxiety, Shyness, and Body Language Explained. Written by Craig Yeager. Narrated by Queenie Walsh. How to Talk to Anyone. Become better at social skills and small talk. Written by Craig Yeager. Narrated by Queenie Walsh. Chapter 1. How to Conquer Shyness. We all are basically social creatures, and we are able to function optimally. Research and experience prove when engaged to some degree in a community, our community might be small, but having one seems to be what matters. All we really need do is observe what happens to prisoners in singular confinement for any prolonged period of time to recognize just how detrimental social isolation is to people. And yet, at some level, communicating with others makes most, if not all of us, uncomfortable. Even the most gregarious and confident people remain knowledgeable about and impacted by the viewpoints of others, and specifically the opinions others have about them. Even if we tell ourselves such viewpoints don't matter to us, if everyone in our community turned all of a sudden against us at the same time, even the most hardy of us would have a challenging time staying untouched. When in the company of other people, our minds instantly construct a map of the minds that surround us. That is, we're continuously thinking of and thinking what other individuals are thinking and making judgments about having reactions to those fantasies. If we think a person in the room finds us attractive, we judge them to have taste and feel a buzz of enjoyment. Or maybe, if we experience low self-esteem, we judge them to have bad taste and feel an increased sense of self-disgust. If we think a person in the room finds us overdressed for the occasion, we'll feel ashamed. Shyness, in one sense, then, represents a hesitation to engage with others for fear of being humiliated. This explains why we can feel shy in one framework and not another. In a space loaded with relatives with whom we're thoroughly familiar, it's harder. However, we should take note of the fact possible to feel shy, not simply because we know them, but simply because they know us. They have already seen our normal conduct 100 or 1,000 times over, and we already know their reaction to it. So normally, we're not afraid to show that conduct, to show our opinions and say the important things we want to say, just because the risk of embarrassment in such company is low. In a room filled with complete strangers, however, no such performance history exists. How, we really wonder, will we be received? We do not know. How prepared are we to run the risk of shame? That's what figures out how shy we feel. I would argue the essential reason for shyness, because of this, rests on where we place our attention. If it's on the responses we might produce in others, and how they might, for that reason, see us. We risk overanalyzing each thought, word, and deed and might find ourselves, as the terminally shy typically do, incapacitated by a painful self awareness. If, on the other hand, we put our attention on everybody else, willfully ignoring our issues about how they may respond to us, we may find some room to breathe as ourselves. How, then, can we move our focus in this way when in many cases it seems veritably padlocked to our self-image? Though not by any mindful design, I found my attention gradually being retreated from myself and to others as I developed not only a real interest in other individuals. The more intrigued by a subject we end up being, the more our sense of self appears to vanish, but a real interest in their concerns. To put it simply, the more compassion I found myself feeling for other people, the less I become concerned about how they saw me. Not because I no longer cared about how they saw me, but rather simply because I was paying less attention to it. It's actually rather hard, I discovered, when dealing with an entire room of complete strangers about whom you actually feel concerned or even interested, to simultaneously feel concerned about what they think about you. Empathy or compassion, then, could represent the ultimate treatment for shyness. It might seem weird to imagine ongoing into a room filled with complete strangers whom we not only don't know, but have no reason to correctly guess are even suffering, that they remain in need not only of empathy in general, but of ours particularly, being, as we are, a total stranger to them. However, to this I'd respond, who is not struggling with something? It may be a massive or cataclysmic something, but everyone hides, to some degree, a secret inner life in which they struggle on an everyday basis. However, you don't really need to know exactly what everybody battles with to come at them presuming they really need your compassion. If empathy, the being concerned about another's happiness as if it were your own, ends up being the predominant emotion you feel in approaching complete strangers, or at the minimum, interest in them does, I want to suggest shyness will become for you a thing of the past, or at the very least, far less of a problem in the future. The trick to dealing with shyness, to put it simply, isn't in developing greater self esteem. It is in developing a greater love for your fellow humans. Chapter 2: The Top 7 Ways to Make Small Talk Work for You. Less clear is what to do when you're in a situation where nobody is talking, but you feel the desire to chat. Maybe you're standing in a long line at the snack bar and would like some distraction. Or you have read all of the publications in a physician's waiting room and you feel like getting a grievance or two off your chest. No one is making eye contact with you, and, in fact, everybody else appears flawlessly content to remain in their own separated worlds. Go into the art of the small talk. How to know when to start a discussion, how to keep one going, or how to keep your thoughts to yourself are skills that you can obtain and surpass with practice. And the 7 ideas beneath can help you give the basis for developing your own style. I began thinking about this problem after reading an outstanding piece by Psychology Today blog writer Matthew Hudson in The Science of Us, arguing that New Yorkers, at least, should speak with one another more. In describing several studies examining the advantages of small talk, he pointed out that the underlying issue was pluralistic ignorance, the idea that everybody assumes that no one else wants to do something that everybody actually wants to do. We all would prefer to talk when we're bored, waiting, uncomfortable, or just looking for the solace of another human's voice, though nobody wants to chime in first out of fear of seeming ignorant or forcing himself or herself onto unwilling listeners. If you, thus many others, ignore the positive influence that your chatting would have on people you don't know, these discoveries suggest that you should give it a shot. As Hudson notes in summarizing one such research study, the delight of casual conversation was shared. Even introverts who aren't naturally given to chatting with complete strangers state that they have more fun when they step outside their comfort zone. Small talk may be preferable to the alternative, at the very least as displayed in the research, but you could be wondering whether this is usually true in all circumstances. Is social talk always good? You can probably think of situations when the last thing in the world you wanted to do was hear another person's chit-chat. Perhaps even the timeless situation of being in the dental professional's chair while having your teeth cleaned up. You certainly are unable to utter any more than several grunts, but the dental professional is free to babble on constantly about all the minutiae of her or his daily life. You could also remember a time when you had work to do or just wanted peace and quiet throughout a stressful commute or trip, but were unable to go away from enforced friendship with your fellow traveler. It is natural enough to shy away from random conversations with complete strangers, with these memories planted in your awareness. Canadian scientists Glenn Posner and Stanley Hamstra, 2013, analyzed the influence of chit-chat on a physician's competence through a research study comparing the efficiency of health students while carrying out, of all things, pelvic examinations. They created 3 conditions, all involving a plastic model on which the med students were supposed to practice. In one condition, the students examined the plastic model only. In the other 2 conditions, a woman patient accompanied the model to replicate the experience of treating an actual person. In one of these conditions, the female patient spoke only minimally. In the other, she launched into a variety of small talk subjects. The results suggested that small talk could undoubtedly be detrimental during medical examinations. Students attended to their job least efficiently when paired with the chatty patient. It seems, then, that there are situations when, regardless of how awkward the silence might be, people are better off not dividing their attention between bantering and completing the task at hand. In social situations, social talk could be more suitable to silence, but when it comes to anticipating general happiness and discussions, people seem to prefer big talk. University of Arizona psychologist Matthias Mao and his partners, 2013, compared the happiness scores of almost 80 undergraduate students at the end of each of 4 days, during which they noted snippets of all their conversations. Using the 300 recordings they acquired per participant, Mel and his team found out that people ranked their well-being much higher the more of their day's discussions were substantive. Example, conversations about relationships versus little. Example, chatting about food. In general, individuals' well-being was higher when they were participated in any kind of talk versus silence. But there was a big dive in well-being scores for those big talks. Mel and his team concluded that the happy life is social instead of singular and conversationally deep rather than superficial. So we know that social talk can produce greater wellness, but not as much as huge talk. Still, in a small talk circumstance, should you then skip over daily superficialities and dive instead into philosophical questions? If so, would not that seem particular to your companions? Taking the conclusions of these discoveries together, these 7 guidelines will help you navigate your way to the best middle ground. Number 1. Do not talk when somebody else is trying to focus. If you're with an individual who's trying to concentrate, whether on your teeth or other things, it might be best to let that person, her or his job. The other individual may appreciate having some psychological bandwidth exposed to work on the task at hand without having to sound conversationally smart. Number 2. When you're with a total stranger or complete strangers, see if anybody makes eye contact with you. Many people who aspire to get involved in a conversation will typically give you some sort of signal. If they're consistently adverting, they may be enjoying a minute of zen and happy to be so, or just not in the mood for idle chatter. Number 3. Enable yourself to enjoy the silence at least from time to time. You could be a highly extroverted individual who truly likes to connect with others, but don't feel you need to fill every empty space with words, even when you're with your loved one. You don't really need to have hours and hours of steady conversation to prove how much you really love or feel close to each other. Number 4. If trivial conversation seems in order, find common and neutral ground. There's absolutely nothing more awkward than making a remark about a situation with a stranger in which you've said something inadvertently insulting. Perhaps you see a person who is uncommonly tall, brief, thin, or heavy, and feel like sharing your judgment of this person's appearance with your seatmate on the bus. For all you know, that seatmate who appears average to you has a relative or friend who isn't quite so average. Presuming that you share the worldview with somebody because you share a seat is a pretty dangerous assumption. Number 5. Take a small break in between sentences. If you release a consistent stream of terminology, you'll have no way of knowing if the other individual is interested in keeping the discussion going. Allow your conversational partner an actual chance to not only get a word in edgewise, but to bail out graciously if he or she desires. Number 6. Don't overshare. You may feel it's safe to reveal personal details to somebody you will never see again, such as somebody on a trip or in a new place. But you should remember the 6 degrees of separation principle. For all you know, the person you've just confessed to about cheating on an exam is buddies with the instructor's spouse. Number 7, be open to much deeper discussions. If things are going well, your conversational partner could be interested in moving from little to medium to huge talk. Nevertheless, do not jump into the deep end unless you have tested those waters one toe at a time. You might be high on the introversion dimension and so prefer time to yourself. Even so, with these ideas, you can get yourself of at the very least some of the social opportunities that can benefit your well-being and those of the people you're with. Chapter 3, More Advice About Small Talk. Making table talk does not come naturally for me. As a matter of fact, the idea of speaking with a complete stranger at a mixer makes me want to hide behind the ferns. Don't mind me, I'm not really here. It's not just me. For any born introvert, making social talk can be downright agonizing. But table talk can result in important relationships. 3 years ago, I met my fiance at the airport. If I hadn't mustered the bravery to say, "Hey there," some other woman would have hopped in line right in front of me, so to speak. The truth is, anything can happen when you stick your neck out. You may meet a new client, stumble on your next roommate, or meet a future good friend. You just never ever know. So, how do you cultivate a more extroverted you? All of us hope that the other person will assume the burden of a conversation. However, master conversationalist and the art of small talk author Deborah Fine says that it depends on you to take on the responsibility of making others feel comfortable. Here are some guidelines to get you talking. The polite intro. When you're introducing people, or if you're introducing yourself, say names slowly and offer info. This is Larry. He just got a new job as an urban organizer here in town. Or you can mention typical interests. Both of you are Red Sox fans. What was her name again? She said her name and it flew out of your brain a nanosecond later. It will do you no good to forget the name of the person you are speaking to, so open your ears and truly listen. One trick is repeating the name of the individual several times. Be prepared. Formulate a few questions that will produce interest. This is an example. Think about the day's current events. Make certain to maintain to date with the daily paper or tune in to your radio station and study up. Be it earthquakes, hurricanes, elections, or scandals. Making eye contact. Look the person you are talking to in the eye. This is something Bill Clinton practices routinely. He makes the person in his presence feel as if he is the only one in the room. When we listen to every word and absorb every little thing that's said, it creates more meaningful discussion. Something to work with. Do not give brief answers. If a person inquires about your occupation, don't say sales and leave it at that. Give him something to work with. Let him know what area of sales you work in and if you travel, where you have gone to just recently. Now, let's discuss me. Asking a person what he likes to do for fun can be a big door opener. That is simply because people love to discuss themselves. Show an interest in their interests and recreational activities. Ask leading questions. If the individual went to a display, ask what she liked most and why. Chapter 4. Even more small talk tips. I want to get along and polite, but I just can't think of a thing to say. Here are some methods I try when my mind is a blank. Number 1. Comment on a subject common to both of you at the moment. The food, the room, the occasion, the weather. Yes, talking about the weather is a cliche, but it works. How do you know our host? What brings you to this event? However, keep it on the positive side. Unless you can be hilariously amusing, the first time you can be found in contact with an individual isn't a good time to grumble. Number 2. Comment on a subject of general interest. A good friend scans Google News right before he goes any place where he needs to make small talk so he can say, "Did you hear that Jeff Bezos is buying the Washington Post?" Or whatever. Number 3. Ask a question that people can answer as they please. My favorite question is, what's keeping you busy nowadays? It works simply because it permits people to choose their focus, work, volunteer, family, pastime, more suitable to the inevitable question. Well, inevitable at least in New York City. What do you do? A variant. What are you working on these days? This is a specifically beneficial evade if you should know what the other person does for a living but cannot remember. Number 4. Ask open questions that cannot be answered with a single word. Number 5. If you do ask a question that can be replied in a single word, instead of just providing your own info in response, ask a follow-up question. For example, if you ask, "Where are you from?" An intriguing follow-up question might be, "What would your life be like if you still lived there?" Number 6. Ask getting to know you questions. What papers and publications do you register for? What internet sites do you check out frequently? These questions usually expose a surprise enthusiasm, which can make for great conversation. Number 7. Respond to what an individual says in the spirit in which that remark was offered. If he makes a joke, even if it's not uproarious, try to laugh. If she offers some surprising information, did you know that the Harry Potter series have sold more than 450 million copies? React with surprise. Number 8. Be slightly unsuitable. I cannot use this method myself, just because I do not have the necessary gumption, but my husband is a master. Over and over, I hear him ask a question that seems partially too prying or too saucy, and I feel a wifely irritation. But then I see that the person to whom he's talking isn't angered. If anything, that individual seems captivated and flattered by his interests. Number 9. Follow someone's conversational lead. If a person undoubtedly drops in a referral to a subject, sense that thread. Confession. I have a streak of perversity that inexplicably makes me want to prevent people in their conversational desires. I am not exactly sure why. This could be, I remember speaking with a man who was certainly dying to speak about the time that he'd lived in Vietnam, and I just would not comply. Why not? I should have been excited to find a pretty good topic for discussion. 10. Along the same lines, counterintuitively, Do not try to talk about your preferred topic because you will be tempted to talk too much. This is a technique that I often struggle to follow, but I should follow it. I am going to get obsessed with a topic and want to talk about everything, the time, with everyone I meet. And I have a lot to say. My spouse is a martyr to the subject of happiness. Chapter 5. When you are bad at it. Chit-chat is the generally needed prerequisite to some deeper conversation. If you are not a natural at it, you might be well served by a step-by-step cookbook method, although I apologize ahead of time to those of you who are repulsed at human interaction being minimized to a formula. Number 1. Arrive early. No, don't be the first to walk in. That could increase your self-consciousness. Hang out near the entrance, and when some people have gotten in, take a deep breath, stand straight, shoulders back, chin slightly up, and walk in at a moderate pace. Existing reasonably early avoids overwhelm and makes it much easier to be seen and to choose whom you may approach. Number 2. Approaching or getting approached. If you want to try to get approached, stand about 10 feet from an attractive person or group. Keep that direct and make a flicker or two of eye contact. Give it a minute to see if you are approached, or if it's a group, you get a wave or perhaps word welcoming you to join. If you'd rather approach somebody, find a comfy place from which to observe, perhaps a corner of the room. That gives you the chance to choose whom to method. If you identify somebody, it is better to see if she or he'll start the conversation with you. That's both because it moves the burden of beginning the discussion to the individual, and if the person is taking the effort, she or he has more financial investment in you. So continue as suggested above, stand about 10 feet away, and make a flicker or two of eye contact. If after a minute there's no response, it's possible they're shy or unconcerned to your nonverbal overtures. You really need to make the first move. Number 3. First words. Take another of those salutary deep breaths. Keep that chin slightly up, smile a bit, teeth a bit apart, but just a bit less it look like a salesperson's tactic. Then just say, "Hi there," in a pleasant but not abundant, trying too hard voice. Naturally, if you know the person, for instance, it's a coworker, say, "Hi," insert the individual's name. Wait a minute, the other individual might initiate, which, as mentioned, builds the person's investment in you. Nevertheless, if not, make an ecological comment. No, I'm not talking about environment change. I'm talking about a comment about the instant environment, a point of commonness between you. Examples. At a party, you could say, "How do you know the host?" Or, "The room's embellished perfectly." While it is generally wise to err on the side of positivity, periodically a negative can be more bonding. For instance, "The music is not precisely quiet, is it?" At a work-related meeting, an ecological comment may be, "I'm in the HR department. How about you?" Or, "Have you heard the keynoter before?" Or if you want to try being negative, for instance, another pump up the troops revival meeting. Number 4, listen. Truly listen. Sure, Your next utterance is made easy if she or he asks you an important question, but many people feel it is intrusive to ask questions so quickly, so they'll say something, generally still small talk. Listen to both the words and tone, adopting a frame of mind of curiosity. That will help you produce an important question to ask, which minimizes the burden on you to come up with something to say. Number 5, look for a hot button. Let's say the individual doesn't give you an opening, but in your reaction to, "Hi, pretty place, isn't it?" just says, "Yeah." It's time to ask a more forward question. You can typically quickly build a bond by asking an important question to uncover one of their hot buttons, something they care a lot about, normally their job, family, pastime, pop culture, health, or these days, Donald Trump. The following question can often reveal one of their hot buttons. So, what are you thinking of these days? Again, listen both to the words and tone. Number 6, react in parallel. Respond by expressing common ground. An example could be this. Let's say you asked, "So, what are you thinking about nowadays?" And the person responds, "Work. Things are really busy." If true, make a bonding comment like, "Me also. It seems like the pressure's ever growing." Take note of the fact the pressure's ever growing adds an emotional element to the conversation, deepening the relationship. If you notice it's premature to comment, ask a follow-up question such as, "What are you working on?" Number 7, go deeper or change the subject. That first thread might be worth following. Keep listening, generally making bonding remarks and asking questions, perhaps deepening ones. In the aforementioned example, it might be, "Work can get frustrating. At least I, in some cases, feel that way. How about you?" If the first thread appears to be going absolutely nowhere, try a much different one. To stay away from sounding like an interrogator, rather than jumping right in with another question to uncover a hot button, set your question with the reveal of one of your hot buttons. An example could be, you might say, "Want to tell me something about yourself? When I'm not working, I am pretty involved in community theater." Number 8, capstone the convo. Stay vulnerable to when you feel it's time to end the conversation. When you do, after they have finished an utterance, stick your give out. Shake their hand and say, for instance, "I'm going to get something to drink. I guess it's time for us to take our seats," or some such. If it's a discussion you would like to continue, say, "I've enjoyed this. I would welcome an actual chance to continue the conversation." You might even make it specific. "Hey, may I have your contact number or email address? I'd enjoy continuing the conversation." Of course, nothing as complex as discussion can be decreased to a formula. But if you have a problem with small talk, this structure may be a place to begin. Try it, adjust it, and later maybe ditch it in favor of your own method. Chapter 6, the top 10 tips to talk about anything with anybody. All of us fear the awkward silence when we are expected to make social talk with a total stranger. Maybe it is at a business supper and you are sitting next to a new associate. Perhaps you're at a wedding and you meet a friend of a friend of a good friend. How do you get past the preliminary introductions? How about when you're in a high stakes circumstance, like a job interview, where you're expected to outperform the competition? Then there's always the blind date. How can you turn it into the start of something big, presuming you want to? Everyone has a very different conversational style. If you have an extroverted personality, you can most likely be planted in any social situation and at the very least get the social talk started without feeling too much pain. If you're on the reclusive side, however, these situations can make you cringe. All you can think about is how much you wish to escape. Many people are someplace in the middle on the introversion extroversion measurement, but everyone has moment of success and everyone has moment of utter failure when the pressure is on to be scintillating. Success is the casual conversation domain, is a lot like success in other social circumstances, including but not limited to online chats, job interviews, and social networking. The standard premise is that you find common ground with the people with whom you communicate by using the correct amount of self disclosure, empathy, and tact. I have found that maybe the most helpful guide for social talk sphere comes from the person centered approach to therapy of Carl Rogers. In the 1970s, Rogers made tremendous contributions to counseling and clinical psychology by teaching therapists how best to listen, reflect the feelings of their clients, and turn these reflections into change prompting insights. Clearly, you are not going to perform psychological therapy in your chats with random social buddies. However, you can use the insights provided by Rogers to smooth over the rough spots in your chats with complete strangers. Contribute to these pearls of wisdom a little social psychology, and you've got an ideal formula for prospering no matter who you're talking to or how much you dislike or are adverse to meeting strangers. Enough small talk. Let's go on to those 10 tips. Number 1, listen. Too often, when we are meeting someone new, we try to fill the dead moment with chatter about ourselves. Far better for you to listen first, talk second. Obviously, a person has to begin the discussion, but if you and your companion actually listen to one another and not worry about what to say next, things will flow more naturally. Number 2, make sure to use compassionate reflecting abilities. The next level of Rogerian communication includes restating what you heard, or at least what you think you heard. This will show that you have been listening and will also enable your conversation partner to clarify if, in fact, you are way off in your judgment of what you thought you heard. Number 3, switch on your nonverbal detectors. Rogers was well known for his capability to read the nonverbal communication of his clients. It's most convenient to do this if you refocus your attention from how you're feeling inside to how you think the other person is feeling based upon that person's nonverbal cues. If the person seems uncomfortable with where the discussion is heading, shift gears. Although some people enjoy discussing politics, religion, and sex, others would rather keep things light. Learn how to assess the impact of what you are saying by reading physical cues like posture, eye contact, and hand movements. Number 4, avoid breeze judgments. If you follow steps 1 to 3 above, you will be not as likely to misjudge the person you are speaking to. But all of us suffer from the temptation to hurry to conclusions about people based upon superficial hints. Things aren't always what they seem to be when meeting somebody for the first time. If you've listened carefully, showed back what you heard, and kept your nonverbal channel open, you'll be not as likely to make an incorrect judgment based upon external cues. Number 5, be an online investigator or behavioral profiler. You can help your case even further if you have the chance to learn in advance who you'll be meeting, along with a little bit of their history. Then you will be prepared to ask questions that relate to the people you're meeting. If you do not have the opportunity, practice your behavioral profiling by utilizing the visual hints available. Think Sherlock Holmes, who could infer occupation by looking at someone's hands. Number 6, don't assume people will agree with you. Research shows that lots of us participate in the assumed resemblance predisposition. It's not safe to conclude that because you are opposed to one or another political party, that the people you are talking to is also. Disputes can produce pleasurable conversation. If you presume everybody feels as you do, however, it's likely you'll start on the wrong foot and end up with it in your mouth. Number 7, try to learn a lot from each interaction with a beginner. A person you've never met before might have been places and done things that you have not. Many people from other spots, including but not limited to nations aside from your own, can give you new perspectives. They will only open up if you show that you're interested. You can broaden your knowledge of other areas, cultures, and countries, ultimately making you a more intriguing conversationalist as well. Number 8, stay on top of the news. Recognizing with existing events is definitely the best way to have enough topics to bring up in any discussion. The subjects do not have to be weighty, nor do they need to include in-depth know-how. Even understanding what the top box office hit or what the hot songs or videos are is better than being oblivious to what is going on in the world around you. Number 9, know when not to talk. There are those that prefer no conversation at all, especially in restricted circumstances such as public transportation. You may think it is great to while away the dull hours on a long plane ride by conversing with your seat next door neighbor. Yet, if you're getting hints from that traveler or others around you to the contrary, then take the hint that your silence would be considered golden. If you find yourself constantly doing this any place you go and getting negative feedback, make sure you won't be tired by bringing along something to read or do to keep yourself entertained. Number 10, don't overshare. Maybe you've heard that it is okay to tell strangers your most private secrets. After all, you'll never see them again, right? There are 3 flaws in that argument. Number 1, you may see that individual again, or that individual might know a person you know. In the 6 degrees of separation world that we live in, it is amazing how rapidly your personal secrets can spread. Number 2, people feel awkward when they hear a complete stranger's inmost tricks. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. How would you feel if you heard somebody you hardly know tell you about their love affairs, health conditions, or family disputes? Number 3, Oversharing can make you a bore. Although we can choose not to read the tedious everyday ramblings of our Facebook good friends, it's a little more difficult to do this face to face. If you return to pointer number 3, you should be able to judge when you're about to commit the sin of TMI. Way too much information. Meeting new people and having to make social talk isn't everyone's favorite pastime. But if you allow these simple pointers, you might find yourself taking pleasure in some of the extras to stabilize your inner introvert. Chapter 7. Are young people's social abilities declining? For more than a whole decade, grown-ups have reasoned that innovation is having a detrimental influence on young people's social skills. New research may clean up this dispute. Theories about how kids and teens have lost their ability to communicate successfully due to technology have become promoted and circulated widely on social media by authors with little evidence to back up their assertions. Research has strengthened this speculation too, including a UCLA research study that conducted an experiment with 51 sixth graders for 5 days, barely a large enough sample for dependable conclusions. One fact that many people agree on is the significance of social skills to young people's life success. If social skills are truly declining, then scientists should be sounding the alarm. But are they? In the latest edition of the American Journal of Sociology, researchers compared parents' and instructors' understanding of kids' social skills from data collected in 3 longitudinal studies. Downey and Gibbs, 2020. This new study, led by Douglas Downey of Ohio State University, is the first to take a deeper dive into a pretty big representative sample of American youth during years when kids' use of the web in the home increased considerably, targeted at addressing the question, are children's social skills decreasing? Researchers used statistics gathered by the Early Youth Longitudinal Research Study of 1998 and 2010 and the National Education Longitudinal Research Study of 1988. In all, more than 16,000 K-8 children were represented. In each research study, teachers and parents or caretakers were asked questions related to kids' social skills, including their capability to form and maintain relationships, show feelings in positive ways, and interact well with people different from themselves. The same questions were asked of instructors and parents or caretakers over the 12-year span. From 1998 to 2010, instructor understandings of kids' social skills remained relatively the same, as did their evaluation of kids' self-control. The exact same pattern of perceptions continued as children progressed through first, third, and fifth grades. In fact, instructors ranked children's social skills somewhat higher in 2010 than in 1998. A similar narrative was reported by parents. Moms and dads ranked their children's social skills much as teachers had, with partially higher evaluations at the end of the 12-year period than at the start. The bottom line is that no decrease in social skills was noted by teachers or parents during this period of increased internet activity. Social abilities are one aspect of growing. While this new research study presents a comforting picture that social skills haven't suffered as the outcome of technology use, it is important to bear in mind that sociability is only one element of growing. Capabilities like strength, self-awareness, and resourcefulness, to name a few, play an essential role in kid and adolescent development. A growing number of academics are studying these and other growth-related qualities of flourishing, which includes the potentially positive results of web use on children. For example, researchers have observed how email and social media help students build and maintain social networks. New media can improve existing relationships, negotiate parent-child relationships, and link children to online interest-driven groups that enhance their creative skill. Recent research about graphic animations, GIFs, suggests these pictures can communicate nuanced and intricate layers of meaning that are not possible with text-only or in-person communication. For that reason, research studies are starting to show that people may overstate the negative effects of innovation, not only on social skills, but in other areas as well. Actually, studies suggest that new innovations may be enabling more efficient face-to-face connections. Why social abilities are not declining. Downey and his associates reflected on the results of their research study, asking, why do kids' face-to-face social skills not decline in the way most would have expected? They believe that moral panic over the predicted effects of new innovation led grown-ups to believe that children's social skills were in an entirely free fall. That belief implied the assumption that sociability develops in a direct way. For instance, if one believes that more time on the internet results in fewer in-person interactions, one may also believe a decline in social skills will follow. Kids develop social skills in far more complex and non-linear ways. The web might lower social skills in some ways and promote them in others. It isn't a zero-sum experience. A 1998 study at first revealed a negative relationship between kids' screen time and social skills, which includes an increase in depression and loneliness. A follow-up research study by the exact same scientists in 2002 no longer found those negative associations. Why? The change in data could suggest that as children have become more proficient at using technology, the negative consequences have diminished. Rather than weakening social relationships, the authors suggest that screen-based innovation might be better understood as offering a new platform by which kids seek independence. From parents, develop group standards and sanction peers, build and maintain identities, and in some ways develop social skills. Based on this research study, should children's screen time be limited? If parents are worried about a decline in kids' social skills, this research study says no evidence that restricting screen time would have significant benefit. That said, there might be other good reasons to limit screen time. There are many varying viewpoints and research, including unexpected insights from teens on the disadvantages of social networking and internet use. This has been How to Talk to Anyone, Become Better at Social Skills and Small Talk, written by Craig Yeager, narrated by Queenie Walsh.